Over the past 15 years, I've had to adapt and evolve and change with the times as I've been asked to do more and more with less and less. You're probably in the same boat. I think we all are. And during that time, I've had to come up with habits that help keep me on track and maintain that efficiency rather than taking things off the rails and being completely too expensive, taking too much time, and needing too many resources. So today, I want to share with you those 6 weapons of efficiency, it's what I call them, to help maintain that maximum output and really get the most out of your skill set, out of your time. But before we do that, this video is brought to you by Bocarola. You can use discount code STRAWNS at checkout to receive 20% off premium mushroom supplements like lion's mane, reishi, and mushroom gummies. These weapons are really designed based on my personal ethos of efficiency. I value productivity and maintaining output even when you don't have all the luxuries of time, budget, people. I've gotten really good at making a lot out of a little, and that is kind of fulfilling to me personally just because of the way my brain works. I don't want to spend $200,000 on a project that only generates $200. I don't want to waste 2 years on something that really should have taken 2 minutes. Thankfully, technology has kept pace and made this a lot easier. So if you stay in touch with what's happening on the technology side and you embrace some of these habits that I'm about to go over, I think you put those 2 things together and really get the most out of your effort. The first habit is being mindful of the decisions you make and making decisions that don't lead to mistakes. I can't tell you the amount of times I've seen people make choices that open them up to so many potential flaws, failures, mistakes, setbacks.
Hello, anybody home? Think McFly, think.
If you start thinking about the choices you're making and making decisions that prevent those mistakes, you will change your life in terms of efficiency and productivity. One of my favorite examples to use in this regard is when you're adding text on screen. If you're producing video content and there's text, anytime there's text, it's potential for a typo. And we all know how annoying typos are. Clients hate them, viewers hate them, everyone hates a typo. It might be good fuel for the comments, but aside from that, a typo is basically the peak distraction. It can have the best lighting, the best cinematography, the best sound design, and if something is spelled incorrectly, it is so distracting and brings the whole piece down.
Ironic.
If you decide to add text to your piece, be very, very careful with that decision. Every time you put text on screen, it is the possibility of a typo. And as good as you might be spell checking, there are entire jobs dedicated just to reading text to make sure that everything's spelled correctly and has proper grammar. It's a nightmare keeping track of all of it. So the more text you add, the more possibility there is for failure. The same thing is true of equipment. The more pieces and wires and components, the more opportunity there is for any one of those pieces to fail. The simpler is usually the better as far as the possibility of a mistake happening. If you need to calibrate a gimbal every time you shoot, if you need to remember to charge 10 different batteries just to power all your devices, it's more and more room for error. So when you're making decisions and you're making choices about what you're gonna do, how you're gonna do it, think what could go wrong and how do I make decisions that mitigate the possibility of those mistakes. The second thing you should keep in mind is that laziness is actually a superpower, at least it can be. I think it's some of the laziest people that come up with the most clever, genius solutions. I have this myself. There's a lot of times where I don't wanna do something or I hate how long something's gonna take, and so I try really, really hard how to solve that problem. I might spend more time than the task actually takes just to figure out how do I solve that problem forever so that I don't have to manually, tediously work on something. I can automate it, I can streamline it, I can do it faster. For me, this has been the category of audio. I hate having to perfectly match and perfect all the levels on audio. It's tedious, it's time consuming, and I've seen people waste weeks just working on audio, fixing stuff that really, in the grand scheme of things, could have been done simpler. One of my favorite tools in Audition is match loudness. I can run basically all my audio at the beginning of a project through match loudness, and for the most part, 99.999% of the time, it works great, and all my levels are exactly mastered from the beginning by a program, by a piece of software that took seconds rather than hours, days, weeks, months working on it after the fact. If you're not doing this, do it, and find all those other ways that you can use laziness to your advantage. Being lazy definitely has a bad reputation, and I don't mean slacking off or not caring about what you're doing, but it's that internal mental effort you find yourself, the moment you feel like you just want to procrastinate because it's so much work. Find ways to streamline that effort and make it more efficient. You're not going to be able to solve every single problem, but I can't tell you the amount of times I've seen people doing things a certain way just because it's what they were taught or what they saw in a tutorial, and you show them that time that you're spending 10 hours doing that, you can actually do that in 10 minutes using this other method that's way better. So whenever I'm looking at something and going, why does this take so long? Why is this taking so much effort and time and attention? Those are the perfect candidates for using your laziness to your advantage and thinking, okay, this is taking too long. There has to be a better way to do this. The third thing you need to keep in mind is knowing the difference between a shortcut and a detour. A lot of times people will think that this is the way to do it, this is gonna save us so much time, and it ends up being a never-ending rabbit hole of a detour spiraling of fixing this thing to fix this thing to fix this thing to fix this thing. A lot of times the marketed shortcuts or the simple ways of doing things end up creating so many other problems. It's almost like playing a game of whack-a-mole where you solve one thing just to have 3 other things pop up. Knowing that difference between an actual shortcut, a better way of doing something, versus, oh, we just took a detour and this ended up taking us the long way around and there wasn't really any benefit, will save you so much time. You might think it's a really good thing to do and, oh, this person's doing it and it's saving them so much time. And then the moment you try it in your workflow, it ends up adding hours or days just to figure it all out. And at the end of it, you really got the same workflow more or less that you already had before. So don't be distracted by those so-called shortcuts that a lot of people are trying to sell you on.
You keep using the word. I don't think it means what you think it means.
And really understand, is this gonna take me on a detour or is it actually gonna get me where I wanna go a lot faster? Sometimes there are ways to do it quicker, better, faster, but there's also a lot of times where it's just wasted effort and energy just to do it different. The fourth thing I'm always telling myself is the moment I think it, just do it.
Just do it! Make your dreams come true!
There is nothing worse for productivity than thinking and planning and wanting and wishing and hoping and dreaming and wanting to do all this stuff and never doing anything about it. If you have an idea, if you have a plan and you want to do something, just do it. Get the ball rolling. That momentum is so valuable for efficiency, for productivity, that I couldn't even quantify how big of a difference it is.
You can do it!
Versus thinking about something and wishing and hoping, and it never happens. Nothing ever comes of it. You spend all this mental effort and energy thinking about things you want to do, and then you never end up doing them. It's a huge pitfall that I see so many people fall into, and it can be streamlined in just getting the ball moving, just doing it. Because then the side effect is once you start doing something, you realize if you want to keep doing it or not. Some ideas you might think are great, and the moment you start doing it, you go, oh, never mind, this doesn't work the way I thought, it takes too much time, or I'm not actually that interested in it. So just doing it gets you past that first hurdle and actually prevents you from investing too much time and energy in something that you don't even want to do, versus spending weeks or months planning to do something, then you go do it and you realize, oh, I don't even like doing this. What'd I spend all that time for? It's a lot of fun to think, to plan, to prepare, but it's so much more valuable when it comes to efficiency to just do it, start doing it, learn from that process, and go from there. The fifth thing that I'm always harping on when it comes to efficiency is when you do something, do it to 100% before you move on to the next thing. There are so many times I've got projects going and this one's at 80% and that one's at 90% and this one's at 50% and I'm just getting started on this. And then when you look at it, nothing's actually done, nothing's finished, nothing has crossed the finish line. If you want to be productive, if you want to be efficient, you need to get things done to 100%. Don't get it to 99, because 99 is still basically zero when it comes to the end of it and people have nothing to watch or there's no output, there's no product. 99%, it's very close to 100%. But it's basically zero. That difference, that binary, is so obvious in creative work, in art. It might take a long time to work on something, but if it's not done, it basically doesn't exist. So no, when you get something close to being finished, push yourself. That's probably the hardest part. That last 10% is so hard to get things across the finish line, but push yourself to do it, because otherwise you risk spending so much time on something that doesn't even exist. It's not real yet. Get things to 100% and then start the new things, then move on to the next, so that way you're not bogged down with all these projects that are basically almost done or close to completion or whatever, and you're frustrating clients, you're frustrating viewers, you're doing, I don't know, whatever it is you're doing, it's not getting things done. That's what efficiency is all about, is getting things done. And the sixth and final thing I'll leave you with is don't be careless. I see so many mistakes that just come from just being careless and having to double back and do something again to fix a mistake that could have been done right the first time wastes so much time. It is the least efficient way to work. If you're gonna do something, pay attention to what you're doing, do it right, do it well, so then you never have to do it again. It is the worst feeling having to do something twice, 3 times, 4 times over just to fix those silly little mistakes that come from being careless. That classic phrase, measure twice, cut once, should be measure 4 times, cut once. Be really, really careful with what you're doing, because that extra time it takes, the little bit of extra attention you need to put in, 1%, 5%, maybe it's a few extra minutes just to check things over, saves you hours in the long run when you're going back and doing something again and opening it up, because now you're distracted from the new stuff you're trying to work on, and it is an efficiency killer. Be careful, don't be careless, and do it right the first time. So those are my 6 weapons for efficiency that I feel like are some of the most valuable lessons I've had to learn over the last 15 years. But I'd be curious, do you have any that I missed? What do you think? Let me know in the comments below.